I'm your host, Hillary Raimo, and joining me today is Maria Yraceburu. Today in these chaotic times, many are coming to the indigenous of the world to find answers. Through the teachings, ceremonies, and stories of Maria's family lineage, Maria continues to share and live the teachings of Earth. Maria is a lineage caretaker of the Apache snake clan, a wisdom keeper, and ceremonialist for nearly 40 years. She is also the author of Legends and Prophecies of the Cuero Apache. Welcome, Maria.
Hello there. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad we finally got you on.
I know. You sound much better than I think you would have sounded the other day.
I was. Thank you so much. Your prayers were felt. Thank you very much. Now, I want to start. I'm very excited about our show this next hour. Maria, why don't you give the listeners a background of where you come from, who you've studied with. You have a fascinating history.
Oh, okay. Well, my grandpa was an Apache medicine man, and he lived between New Mexico and Arizona about the time that I was following him around. He was in Arizona, and he is the grandnephew of Nochel Daquin, who was the Apache prophet in the 1800s. And he was involved in the ghost dance religion and Wovoka and many other things that transpired in the 1800s that really kind of set the tone for Native American history for about 100 years. And so the information got handed down through my great-grandmother and my grandfather and then to us kids. And so I spent the first 17 years of my life following him around and learning from him. And then I also I studied from Rolling Thunder of the Cherokee Shoshone and Matthew King of the Lakota, Buffalo Jim of the Seneca, and that's the men. And then I've also been privileged to study from numerous grandmothers and be friends with people like Brook Medicine Eagle and Hawaiian Kahuna and Flo Yapa of the Jemez Pueblo, and it's a pretty lengthy list. And I can't say that it's study like we think of, you go to a workshop or you go to these mystery schools and stuff. It was more like hanging out and helping and being put to work during ceremony and other things. And so that was kind of how I got my training, and I started running ritual and doing things about the time I was 10 years old. And then it's just progressed, and now my grandpa's long gone since 1973, and I'm in the initiate stages of elderhood, and so now I'm pretty much grandpa, except a girl.
Grandma, maybe? Grandma
yeah,
there?
Grandma. We call him Yaya.
Maria, I'm so excited. I'm a big fan of your book, Words of Power, and I'm hoping we can talk about that tonight. So, with everything going on in the world, I know a lot of my guests have been coming on, and they've had lots to say about, the different things that we're dealing with as on a collective level, and how can indigenous teachings at this time assist people in everyday experiences? Let's kind of start there, and then we'll head on into some bigger questions.
Well, the first place it's going to start is it's going to help people ground. Things are changing so fast every day these days that it really, our outlook is to get up first thing in the morning and thank Grandfather Sun for making it through the night, for a new day, and for the life we've been given today. And so our principles that concern Earth help people slow down and stay grounded. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And then you have the prophecies that kind of tell us to watch for road signs during certain times. And so we watch for these things, and so we understand, okay, well, there's a possibility that this is going to happen or that is going to happen. And so we prepare ourselves. And by living an everyday life of ceremony and reverence for the land and the cross-species communication, so to speak, we kind of learn how to stay in a harmonic flow with how things are going. And that's the things that we need to teach now. I belong to several groups. My own group, Yraceburu Earthwisdom, has a project that we call the Sisters of Hanua Project, and it's all the grandmothers came to us. We have over Wow, I would say we're up to 24 nations now that have come to us, the grandmothers, the wisdom keepers, and elders that have said, it's time now that we step forward and speak. For the last 20, 30 years, you've been hearing about the prophecy keeper and the wisdom keepers that are primarily the men. And we went up to Hopi Mesa 2 years ago and met with Grandfather Martin Gassi Yoma, who is one, and I apologize if I messed up that name, but who was one of the four Hopi grandfathers that went to the United Nations to try to tell people what was getting ready to happen. And what Martin told us was that they had reached the time where it was seen that the men that carried these ancient knowings, with the fourth world completion, it was time to hand them off now to the sisters. And the sisters were supposed to lead the way. And that same year, we got confirmation from the Hawaiian kahuna of the same thing. And what they came to us was, now the women walk first. So it's not, the way we interpret that is not so much about, like back in the 60s and 70s when we were all working at being feminists, and going that way. But it's more about learning the ways of Earth and the feminine approach, allowing the give and take and flow and ebb of energies to work with us. One of the things that I like to talk to people about is to be in group. That's a really big one, to discuss what's going on with you, either spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever, because we have so much energetic input that's happening between society, the Earth, and out universal coming in from outside the planet and our galaxy, that when we get in group, we understand, because we hear everybody's story, that we're all going through it. So that's a part of evolution. So how do we deal with that instead of being off isolated and alone and think we're all going nuts?
Mm-hmm. That's a really great point. So people now who are experiencing trouble, whether it be financial, relationship-wise, on whatever level, you would recommend they find like kindred spirits, so to speak, to be in. I
think people need to get together with others at least once a month, if not more often, just so they have that confirmation.
Now, do you speak a lot of prophecy? Now, are we coming to the edge of a specific prophecy that's coming up? Could you speak of current prophecies? You talked about the sisters coming forward and the feminine consciousness coming forward. Is there a certain time frame on that, or are we looking at that now?
Well, for us, we don't operate like the Mayan calendar. I have wonderful Mayan sisters that I go to for that kind of thing. But what we see in the signs that it's all coming to a culmination, and all of the prophecies, whether the Hopi, Mayan, Incan, Celtic, we work with the Ani that are the traditional of Japan, and every single one of them sees that we are coming to the end of what we call a consciousness paradigm, okay? And that's a complete shift is getting ready to happen. It's already occurring. When we talk about things like 2012, though, what we find when we go out, and we all kind of get frustrated, because I've been talking to Maria Teresa Valenzuela, who's Mayan, about it, and everybody's got their focus on the 2012 number, this date, right? And yet we're not focusing on the steps that it's going to take to get us there. And it is a preparation thing. We have to continue to evolve each moment of our life to be there and be present, or it's going to go right by us and we're going to miss it.
So is it like a gateway? Are we looking at a gateway of sorts?
It is a gateway. I've heard it put in many ways. My grandpa told me it was going to be like one day we were going to wake up and just everything would be different. Okay, that's one way. But he said in the process of getting there, we would see that there would be a lot of people that would be leaving the physical presence, through death. And that was a lot about natural disasters, things like airplane crashes, plagues, stuff like that, like AIDS and cancer, which is a plague, and nobody refers to it that way. These things would take a lot of people that, okay, now here's a stretch for some people, okay? We believe that before you come here, you get to see it all. And you kind of make this agreement about what you're going to go through in life, the experiences you want to have, and 8 different avenues of how to experience that are created. So subconsciously, many people that are feeling the high energetic shift within the physical form are finding that it's too much to experience. And so, like, an unconscious decision is being made that they're going to take that avenue that's availed itself to leave until such time as the settling has occurred and they can come back in the new form that's adjusted to that energy. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people have come on and talked about that similar theory, so that's something that my listeners are familiar with. So, but it's interesting to hear it put in that sense too in your tradition, because it just makes a lot of sense. So now, if somebody chooses to stay, what kind of steps are they looking at in preparation? Right. And the biggest one is, of course, it's always the integrity of the heart. How true to yourself and others are you being? How much are you actually staying present in your relationships? How much do you value yourself as a sacred being and others? Yeah, there's a lot of people, I go and I do these workshops and conferences and stuff, and I love them all. They're all very excited. They're all very energized about learning things, but the second they walk away from the conference, it's pretty much done. They are not able to take that into their living lifestyle. And so I wonder sometimes, because, even in my circle, I have to catch my group a little times because, the little white light thing that we've been taught's okay. It's not. That's one of the little pitfalls or sabotages that drags us back into that old world consciousness that we mentally, physically, spiritually have to, if there's a battle, that's what it is. Okay? To stay within that integrity. And that's like on every level of living, from saying, yes, I will go help with something, to taking care of my own personal self. It's like, if I make an agreement to be there for someone and then I back out, by whatever reason, it's still, if there's enough of those times, how people kind of start to look at you like, oh, yeah? This is the kind of thing that we need to get rid of. We need to be honest with ourselves and not react all the time. We need to step back, look, and act responsibly. So, like in that situation where someone says, oh, Maria, can you come and teach a workshop because we're raising money to do this or that? And I have to look at it and say, you know what? Yes, I'd be delighted to do that. Or, that's a really busy month for me, and energetically I just don't know that I'm up for it, so maybe I can help in some other way. So it's to look and be realistic about what we can and can't do, because even though we're evolving and we're all really excited about this new phase of human consciousness that's coming into world order, we're also still a little unrealistic about what we can and can't do, because we are in these bodies that evolve at a much slower rate than our consciousness does. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And do people feel that in the form of health issues?
Oh, definitely. And right now I'm going to tell you a formula that I tell people when my life partner Linda is a gypsy healer. So when we go to do workshops, one of the things that we express is water. You've got to be drinking your water. If you're not drinking half your body weight in water, the planetary energies right now are severely affecting you. And there is a lot of arthritic pain that people are feeling, electrical pain throughout their nervous system, and it's all because of dehydration. Now, another thing that's happening is because the ozone layer is so thin, we are not absorbing the water. We're receiving just enough radiation that we are having problems in the potassium pump area. So I remember back when I was raising my kids, one day eggs would be okay and one day they wouldn't be okay if you were listening to all the nutritionists and scientists, right? And so they were telling us that we were eating too much salt. We were getting too much sodium. It was causing diabetes and all kinds of stuff. So a lot of people went to cooking without salt. But what's happened is we are not now getting enough of the proper kind of salt. Our sodium pump is shutting down. So even people that are drinking and drinking and drinking water, they're not absorbing it. All it's doing is flushing the nutrients out of their body. They're not being able to absorb. So we do a Hawaiian salt ceremony that one of my Hawaiian aunties taught us. And the thing about the Hawaiian salt or the Tibetan sea salts that are now available is that they are not processed, plus they are gathered in a very sacred manner. And so every day I will take and wet my index finger and stick it in this salt and then put it on my tongue, and then you're supposed to think happy thoughts. That's the Hawaiian way, right? And so you're thinking happy thoughts, but what it's doing is it has all these minerals, all these nutrients, plus the salt that you need to kickstart your potassium pump in your body, which then allows you to absorb the water.
That's interesting. Maria, we have to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to keep talking about these fabulous things that you're sharing with us. Everybody, Maria Yraceburu has joined me. Please stay tuned. We have a great hour coming up. We'll be right back after this message. Thanks.
Life Pages comes to you live. You've been asking for it, and now you've got it. Every Friday at 3 p.m. The country's largest, most comprehensive directories to natural, holistic, and alternative therapies and resources. Carmen and John LaMarca, publishers of the Whole Life Pages directories, will give you the opportunity to meet the who's who and learn the what's what in these fields. They'll cover topics such as chelation therapy, nutrition, energy work, children's programs, animal health, coaching, healthy eating, oxygen therapies, feng shui, and healing alternatives. They'll bring to light environmental projects and awareness, the truth in medicine, and speak with schools that offer alternative education and training. Our goal at Whole Life Pages is to provide you the tools through which you can be empowered to positively affect change in your life and in the lives of others every Friday at 3 p.m.
Listening to AchieveRadio.com. A new drummer for a new awakening.
Welcome back, everybody. Maria Yraceburu is a lecturer, teacher, counselor, spirit co-director, I love that, of the Yraceburu Earthwisdom community, and author of Words of Power, Wisdom of the Rainbow Serpent, Prayers and Meditations of the Cuero Apache, and Legends and Prophecy of the Cuero Apache. She's joining me, talking and sharing her fabulous wisdom with me and all you wonderful listeners out there. So if you have questions for Maria and you would like to ask her something, you can send me an in-quick message, or you can give us a call, 602-412-4933. 888-866-9849. Welcome back, everybody. So, Maria, before we went to break, we were talking about the salt issue with a person's body, and it makes so much sense to me. And so what would somebody, because we're given so much information about how we have to avoid salt and what about iodine and all of this other stuff. And I totally agree with you. In fact, I have taken that advice and changed a lot of my health issues around full circle. So I completely can attest for that. So what other things can we do to improve our health right now as we go through all of these different energies?
Okay, well, the first one was the water, and I didn't get the formula out, but what you want to be drinking if you're in fairly healthy state is you want to be drinking half your body weight in ounces. So like if you weighed 100 pounds, you'd be drinking 50 ounces of water a day. If you are not healthy, you should minimally be drinking the same amount in ounces. So 100 pounds of body weight would equal 100 ounces of water. Now, it sounds like an awful lot, but if you consider the amount of processing and genetic tampering that goes on with the food these days, we have a lot we need to flush out that our livers won't even tolerate. So I suggest a couple of things. There's the water. I suggest once a week a detox bath, which helps pull all the environmental toxins out of your skin and pores, because that's one of the easiest ways and the most subtle that it gets into our organs. The bath, it consists of like a pound of baking soda and a pound of sea salt, or Epsom if you want to do that. I'll let you know. You can go to the baking department of your grocery store and pick up the salt for like the ice cream makers. It's much less expensive than Epsom salt, and it's the same thing. So you can do this and sit in a tub with really, really hot, as hot as you can stand it, water for about 20 minutes, and you will notice a difference in your skin when you get out. So it will help rehydrate your skin. Aloe juice is great. I do 2 to 6 shots of aloe juice every day, and it really helps because, one of the things that's happening to our bodies with all this bombardment of energy, and that's not even dealing with the emotional and psychological stuff that we're having to go through to get right, is that, Did you ever lose your train of thought right in the middle of what you were saying?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Never lose your sense of humor. That's what we're looking for, right?
Oh, well, half our family's Coyote Clan, the other half Snake Clan, so you have to get used to it. They say it's a very delicate dance to do together, but it's the only way to make it work. So, anyway, the aloe juice really helps. Oh, what's going on? It's like being electrocuted. It's kind of interesting because 4 years ago I was struck by lightning, and I went through all kinds of physical pain and symptoms and seizures and trying to find ways to work with that. But one of the things that it did was it brought me closer to medicine people and shamans from around the world, and doctors that are walking the path in between right now, that are trying to make that transition into the more holistic types of medicine. And so what I discovered was that basically all of humanity on Earth, if you live on Earth, you're having the same problem, just not quite to the same extent that I did with the lightning sickness, because that was a concentrated force. But everyone is dealing with this, and with us upping our consciousness, we raise the vibration in our body. So it's a boost in electrical, so it's like you're taking your body, and you're no longer the 112 or the 120, you're going to the 240. And you haven't improved the wiring in your house. So what happens is our nervous systems get burned up. And what happens with that is then we start to have synapse gaps. We start to have lapses in consciousness. Our body starts to experience a type of body panic where it seizes up and clamps down. So simple things like reading your labels on the food that you eat and making sure you can pronounce most of the ingredients is really a big plus. Trying to go organic as much as you can. Having fresh air to breathe. A lot of people are really into, shutting the houses down tight and being in the air conditioning or the ventilated air. This is not good. This does not feed your system. So these types of things are things that we need to reconsider. Our physical form, that's our temple. We take care of the churches and the temples and all these other things, but we let our body go down to nothing. If you look at, like on the reservations, when I was going into college, the number one cause of death at that time was tooth decay. But if you look back 150 years ago, before we were introduced to things like sugar and flour, which were processed and are even more processed now, there was no tooth decay. It's a modern day epidemic. So I'm not saying that we have to go back and, live like cavemen or like Indians 150, 200 years ago. But what I'm saying is we need to be conscious of the same things. And we've gotten really lazy. We have gotten really lazy. And because time has sped up, and I'll talk about that in a minute because that's a fun one. Because
I think we're gonna skip our break,
okay.
So we're gonna go ahead and go straight through. So
we
have plenty of time.
I'm like a circle talker.
This
so
is good stuff. This is good stuff. Yeah.
Put me down. But because of this overwhelming of time, that time has sped up, people are under the illusion that there's just not enough time to attend to ourselves, to accomplish all the things we want to do in our lives. But in reality, we create time, and the more we let it speed up, the more it's going to speed up. Time is measured by rate of communication. Did you know that? So instant messaging on the computer is part of what has made our day speed up. And, I have a friend that works at NASA, and we used to sit and we used to talk about the interesting way that people conceive of time, because time runs the same at the equator, which is a great landmass, and the North and South Pole, which is a very small landmass. So how can those different areas run at the same time? It's not possible. It's an illusion. And what I learned from my grandpa is that all the time is really illusion. It wasn't even created till the third world, and that's when we broke the system.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to fix everything. So, like this world we're leaving, the Apache call that the fourth world of soul sickness.
And what are we coming into? What are we coming into?
Well, for us, we call it the fifth world of coming together. Graham Twyla of the Seneca called it the fifth world of peace. The Incan call it the time of meeting ourselves. It's when we see the ancestors and we are the ancestors. Yeah.
Does that have to do with reincarnation of elders coming back through at this point? Is there anything in your prophecies that talk about that?
Yeah, actually, Wovoka said a long time ago that our ancestors would rise up if we did the ghost dance in celebration of who we are. And there's a lot of misconception around the ghost dance and what happened, and we're not going to get into that right now. But it was originally a celebration of the power and the strength of a people. And the prophecies, as I learned them as a child regarding that, were that a time would come when our ancestors would rise up again in the children of our enemies. And so when the 60s rolled around and all the kids became hippies, my grandpa and some of the others, like White Antelope, the Kiowa, and some of those, they were like so excited because this was a dream come true, And some of them got a little frustrated. It didn't move as fast as they wanted. Prophecy is an interesting thing, as well as expectation. And prophecy, I got taught, is put forth in a manner that it truly can go almost either way, positive or negative, and it's what the combined consciousness carries it to. It's more about looking at some of the things that are in the prophecy and recognizing them as signs that we have reached this moment in history. And it is our task, our warrior's task in life, are we going to make it better for the next 7 generations? Are we going to live our lives so that this place is still here for our great-great-great-grandchildren, or for when I decide to come back? So it surrounds that. Now, the expectation part has to do with manifestation. And we got taught as kids that you get what you project, right? And we also got taught, walk your talk. So these are like the phrases that I heard growing up. And what that was about was, if you believe something can happen, you have a vision, you believe something can happen, then what you have to do is you have to open yourself to receive the signs to know what to do. So my process is I do my prayers and my meditation, I receive the vision, then I open my eyes and I look for the first step I can take. And if it's not there immediately, I don't get frustrated. I release my attachment to the fact that it has to be in my time. It's more like I got a seed planted for a future memory, like a deja vu kind of experience. So then when it presents itself, I'm strong in who I am, and I know which way to go with it. So this is how I live my life. I do my meditation, I open my eyes, I see the step, I take the step, I go back into meditation. Once it's done, get the next step. And that's how I work the partnership, you know?
Yeah.
I don't have all the view. I'm here right now in this limited physical form. Now, I may decide, you know, once I leave to stay out there a little while and catch a glimpse of more. But while I am in this physical body, what I am afforded can only be interpreted by the physical limited body. Because that's the computer, your brain. And that is based on past life experience. That is based on who your parents were, how you were raised, the spirituality, you know, the whole rigmarole, culture, everything. And that is what makes that little brain either figure things out in Macintosh or DOS. And so, like, even our communication. Now, see, I know you like wolves, okay, so I'm going to tell you a wolf story. And I'm going to encourage everybody, I'm going to get political for a minute, I'm going to encourage everybody to have Obama sign the wolf bill, okay? To protect
I second that.
Okay. I'm very... Most politics I stay out of, but when it comes to the wolves and the wild mustangs, stay out of my way. These are as important to this continent as the American Indian, as the melting pot theory originally was. There are things that we have thrown out the window and say they no longer carry value because we didn't live up to our expectations. And what we need to do is we need to redefine things, like we have done with words. Like awesome, you know, this is a great word, yes?
Yes.
Awful, people take, no, not so good.
Yeah.
But awful, if you look it up, used to be awe-filled.
So, Maria, speaking of words, why don't we use this as an opening to go into your book, Words of Power? And let's talk about that topic because there's been a lot of interest in that come up lately for me personally, but also for many people I've come and crossed paths with. So could you describe a little bit about what this book was all about, and let's go into what you mean by Words of Power.
Okay, Words of Power, boy, when I did the book, it started off with just a handful of prayers I was taught as a kid, and then the sacred laws and the lessons that come with them. And so I got to thinking about it, and, you know, I had done prayers and meditation, which is an extensive prayer book. It takes people through the cycles, the lunar cycles and the prayers, so that they can get a feel for what the energies are and recognize that and that you can communicate. So So when we did Words of Power, however, it was like I wanted something so simple because I discovered that I need translators. I did not grow up where I was ever told that my imaginary friends were not real. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I was a little ahead of the game in some of this than maybe some other people were. Now, I'm not saying any one person has the right way, okay? They all are relevant. But what I am saying is that I got taught the magic of ritual, ceremony, of engaging in life action with everything, whether it's a bug or a bird or a human. And I treat them all the same. So my friends laugh when we go out hiking and I talk to the animals. But it's really simple. There's actually graphics in it, and I have to tell you, I put pictoglyphs screened in behind a lot of the words, and the pictoglyphs carry power as well. But the reason that I did Words of Power, and I tried to keep it so simple, was that people could read the words, and feel the power of the rhythm of saying them, the power of how they come together, and the inspirational value they carry. We believe that every word that comes out of our mouth is one step in the manifestation process. And that's why it's so important to think about what we say before we say it. And that reaction thing that we were talking about earlier, don't react, think, then act. But when I speak, I am telling Creator, this is what I want in my life. This is what I want in my life. So I decided I was going to create this simple little book that carried these very powerful symbols in them that would give people chicken skins. That's what my Hawaiian relatives call them. Chicken skins is when God walks through you, and you can't ignore it. Basically, goosebumps. Okay? And so the Words of Power were to help people understand how simple this actually is. How simple this actually is, and yet how powerful it actually is. If we boil everything down to its simplistic form, we actually find the heart of it. And hang on here. Let me get something else. Okay, I just popped the book open. So let me read you this one because, they're so short. You could read it all in a day. I have friends that say, I carry it around, and then whenever I need, I'm feeling down, I just pop it out and I look at it. And I just found out it's being used at Stanford Medical Hospital in the psych ward. So I got really excited about that.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So this is the sacred law of purpose, and this is what it says. To move forward in evolution, we choose. To know the way, we meet our guides. Challenges have been met, and advice is now given. The power of these teachings, which the experience and knowledge of the unknown together come together, are the truth of life in the new energetic dynamic, the great coming together. So that's what we were just sitting here talking about, and I just shoved my finger in the book, and it opened up. I don't believe in coincidences.
I don't either, so that's just wonderful. It's very magical. So the Words of Power that you talk about, now I research Egypt. I take groups to Egypt, as you may know, and, we talk about how their culture worked with magic and using words and sound and to create those kinds of, I guess, experiences, just like you just said. So is it your belief in your tradition that, there's a certain language that perhaps has been lost that brings us closer to that aspect of magic?
Yeah, I think so. But like our language right now, the Apache language, there are 5 different dialects within the Apache language, but I see my grandpa spoke the old Quero, the Quechua, and that was before that. The Quero Apache, just let me put this forward here. I see I'm Quero Apache. If you look on the rolls and the different tribes, you You won't find that. Quiero is what the Kiowa, Navajo, and Apache called themselves before they split up. So this was like prior to 1000 A.D. I don't think they use AD anymore. I think they changed that, but I'm old, so go with it. So anyway, so there are these languages that as society has moved into more and more separation from the earth and her ways, that yes, we have lost a lot of this. Now, I know some of it, but I don't know much of it. And I, over the last 15 years, have reestablished relationship with the Incan Quiero, and we have been comparing words and language, and we have been ceremony and been finding the common denominator. And so it has unlocked a lot of the language. I found out that there's a whole group of Apache that were taken to Florida with Geronimo that still carry parts of the old language. Some of them still live in Florida. Some of them live in California, of all places, up in the mountains by Mendocino. So it's been really interesting since the first book came out, how many of those that have kind of like pulled back and just held things inside themselves. It was an opportunity with the first book coming out in 2002 for them to start to say, yes, we're still here. And I've been amazed by that. And it's been really wonderful, quite a blessing.
Yeah, it's really just it's a passion of mine to trace those sounds back to some of the original. It's almost like symbols, wouldn't you agree? Tracing symbols back into the original form. You also wrote a great book called Wisdom of the Rainbow Serpent, and you are a keeper of the Apache snake clan. So perhaps we can now kind of go into the symbolism of the snake and what do you mean by rainbow serpent, and how do you work with that energy?
The rainbow serpent is well, I work with rattlesnakes, and the legend is that at this transition of time that the rainbow serpent would come and wrap his coils around the earth to protect his mother. So we see variations of this, of course, with Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan, and a lot even with the Aborigines of Australia. We see much of this and how that snake serpent energy has a lot to do with the Kundalini and the earth and the feminine. So as we're watching this time and what we need to do to transition, we're seeing an awakening of this type of consciousness. Now, within our tradition, the way I was taught is that there's a series of initiations that basically are found in the diamonds on the rattlesnake, 13 diamonds. And in modern time, we started to call them sacred mirrors of fire, because if you get bit by a rattlesnake, it's like having liquid fire in your veins. And so these they were like purification initiations that had to take place, things that were designed to awaken human consciousness. But they also stand for like rites of passage and that we go through in a single life, not just the evolutional life. And so I've learned a great deal about shape-shifting, time travel. I haven't managed that one yet. My grandpa knew that one pretty good. He'd just go behind a rock and disappear, and we'd find him somewhere later. The biggest thing that I got taught through the Snake Clan was to do ritual on land, in sacred places, in power spots, and to do them with certain cycles in our year that brings humanity together, opens vortexes for us to see what we had previously believed impossible. And by being able to do that, then we give the human consciousness a boost, because it's experiences that we cannot walk away from and deny. They change our lives. And so this is one of the things that I do. I'm more of a ceremonialist. I've been trained in, like, the healers aspects as well. When you go through your training, you learn how to do different jobs, you know. So you're a traditional healer, you're a priest, you're a storyteller, you're a web dreamer. And all of these things you have to be trained in, and then you get to pick which one you want to do.
So it's like specializing.
Yeah, you don't settle into one thing and say, oh, this is my life's purpose, until you have visited them all.
Mm. Maria, can people work with you? Do you currently take on apprentices or some kind of teaching situations where you are?
We have a self-paced study program that's done online, and we're just, as a matter of fact, getting ready to do some audio and taped, video, where you can see me, classes with that. And it's called Spiral Dancing Life on Earth. And once a year we have an optional gathering where people come together in New Mexico, and we do traditional camp, and my relatives come in, and we do the teaching of the herbs and other things. But mostly we do making of relations. Now, the apprenticeship itself is some of the Tostayan teachings, the snake climb teachings. But what I did back in college was I got involved with one of my counselors, who was a psychologist, and this was back when self-help stuff was just starting out. And so she had a group of women that she would get together with about once a week. And it turned out that it was a group for healing of sexual abuse when they were children. Mm-hmm. And so she was talking to me because she saw that there was a limitation with the clinical psychology of what she was doing. So I said, well, let's take some of these rites of passage and let's put them together and see if they work. And so we did that, and it worked fantastically. And so what I teach now has certain aspects of that psychological, because I learned from her that these things were good for all transitions in life that was going on now, not just for that post-traumatic stress of the sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. Because there's not one human that lived in a world of soul sickness that does not have post-traumatic stress of some kind.
Yeah.
You know,
so how would people find out information about your apprenticeship and other things that you offer? They
could go to our website. We're Yraceburu Earthwisdom, and our web page is yraceburu.org. And
let's spell that for everybody. It's Yraceburu. There's a link on my radio homepage as well as my website, hillaryraimo.com. If you would like more information, you can contact Maria through her website if you were interested in more of her sharings and teachings that she has so graciously offered the world. Maria, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and we're kind of coming round to the end of our hour. We have about 5 minutes left. So overall, what is your message for everybody listening tonight? What do you want them to really feel right now at this time and place?
I want them to feel alive. I want them to feel alive. I want them to feel involved, and I want them to engage in life. I want them to open up and be all that they can be. And I'd like to share a prayer with you right now. This is our first prayer of life, and it is said at everything, absolutely everything we do. And then we add more stuff to it. But this is the necessity. And it goes like this. Nogotsen awazana, yal awazana, dalitse degoyana, nogotsen ilditsi, tinu ichikise, shishi yukihi, and what that means is we have come from the Earth Mother, we have come from the Sky Father, we have come into this circle to be all that we can be. We are all our relations. This is our prayer, and we are grateful. And so it is. Now what that prayer means is you are a life, a sacred life, and you have been afforded the opportunity to come here to learn to be all that you can be. So be it.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And, I think we need to end the show on that note and let everybody float off and really feel the words that Maria has shared with us over this past hour, and go back and listen to the archive and really let her words sink in and feed your heart and soul. And I'm just so grateful to have you finally join us on the show. And I'd love to have you come back and talk about some of the transitional stages that we go through. Perhaps we can have you back this spring and you can share some different teachings with us if you'd like. And
I would love to.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for sharing the recipes for health, water and salt and beautiful bath. Maria, thank you so much. And again, anybody interested in more information, you can visit her website, yraceburu.org. And again, that's YRACEBURU for more information. So coming up, I'd like to say a quick announcement that next week we will be having our monthly astrology show with Mary Lamondo. So join us next week. We will be going into what's just happened. And Mary was just in Egypt last month and had a member of her group pass away on the solar eclipse. She died of natural causes, and but she's going to share her experience of what that was like to be in Egypt, traveling the temples, and have something like that happen to the group. It's an amazing story, one filled with much heart and love, and she will be sharing all the great and wonderful mixtures of astrological energies that we are experiencing this month. And her husband and partner, Amaru Lee, who is a Peruvian Quechua shaman, will be joining us next week as well to talk about his upcoming initiation tour in Peru this coming September, which I am helping to sponsor and also joining them on as well. So, Maria, thank you so much for being here as we say goodnight. And to all the listeners that are still here with me, I'd like to say thank you from my heart for joining me this past hour. And I hope you'll join me next week as well, same time, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I'm going to sign off tonight. And, Maria, would you be willing to say that prayer one more time for us?
Oh, sure. Nagotsen awazana, yal awazana, dalitse negoyana. Magotsen ildiritsi, pinu ichikase, shishi ukehi, dayane. Oh.
Good night, everybody. Live well. Namaste.